think we are just about there. Yep, here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Angie Atkinson, and I'm here today with the lovely and talented Dana Morningstar. Dana, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Always happy to have you.
Yeah.
So, while we are getting, I need to type in the chat, right? Or no? Anyway, I'll get there. My thing's going slow.
Okay.
So while we are waiting for all that, let me just remind you that we do this stream in case you're new around here or if you've been around. We do this stream once a week. We alternate channels. This week we're over here on my channel, and next week we'll be over on Dana's channel, which is Thrive After Abuse here on YouTube. And you can find Dana under that moniker, Thrive After Abuse, all around the internet. We also have a couple of backup systems. So if you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification on both channels, there's one way you can get notified. And then if you want to back up to make sure you don't miss it, you can text Angie Live, all one word, to 33222, ANGIELIVE. Or you can text Dana Live, all one word, DANALIVE, to 22999.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And we will make sure that we text you before we go live each time, individually or separately. All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. I guess I didn't need to type in the chat. That worked out great. Okay. So we were looking, I always like to keep up on these narcissism studies, and so we thought we would talk about this one today and kind of the implication of it, and then also what we think about these types of studies.
Hmm.
So I'll just give you a quick overview, and then I love what Dana and some stuff Dana said before, so I'll ask her to jump in after that. So basically, the study says that, and it was done by Pascal. I'm probably saying it wrong. Wallish who was a clinical professor in both New York University's psychology department and Center for Data Science, who wrote the paper. Um, and it appears in the Journal of Personality and Individual Differences. Anywho, so it talks about the difference between narcissism and flexing. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that they decided that narcissism is mostly caused, and we're talking about toxic narcissism here, is mostly caused by insecurity as opposed to grandiosity. Now, we've talked before about studies we've seen that said the opposite of that, and I have mixed feelings on it. Personally, I think that it depends on which way they became a narcissist. So you've got those who were spoiled into it, and then you've got those who were abused into it, right? So, but Dana, you had some really great insight that I thought we should start with. What are your thoughts?
Sure, sure. Well, and I guess I just wanted to say too that a lot of the studies, like you said, that kind of um, talk about causes of narcissism. A common one is that narcissism is uh, kind of correlated to, well, like this one, insecurity or low self-esteem. And then there's other studies that say narcissism, there really isn't a tie between narcissism and low self-esteem. So um, I think what's important for us to realize is that there's probably lots of different causes. Like you said, are they kind of born into it, or is it a response to abuse, kind of nature, nurture, combination of both? Is it low self-esteem? Is it, kind of more is unfounded high self-esteem? Uh, is it entitlement? Really, at the end of the day, what's important for us to realize is that it doesn't really matter kind of where it comes from. It's
Hmm.
hurtful behavior is hurtful behavior is hurtful behavior.
Hmm.
And um, yeah, because and the reason I say that is because I see a lot of people start doubting themselves. Oh, well, if it's from insecurity, oh, they have low self esteem. Oh, I want to be there for them and I want to have compassion. And they kind of put themselves back in harm's way out of this kind of misplaced compassion. And it's really important that we have healthy boundaries based off of somebody's behavior. And it doesn't matter what's driving that behavior.
100%. Yep. And I think that's really I think that's the biggest takeaway from this whole deal. I mean, it is interesting sometimes to know, and I needed to understand their psychology, and that's why I talk about it sometimes. But the truth is that ultimately, when we're talking about do we stay or go, it shouldn't, the cause shouldn't matter. Because many of us have been through similar traumas, right? And so, yeah, we didn't turn out that way, did we?
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, so
Well,
there
and
is.
it sounds like in this study, and I haven't read it, but kind of based on what you were saying, it sounds like they were uh, talking more in terms of um, certain behavior being grandiose, and like the roots of grandiosity, is insecurity, and some of the time that can be true, um, you know, but
Sure.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, some of the time a person can have a really unfoundedly high ego, and I don't think it's necessarily based in low self-esteem. It might be based in delusion. It might
Yeah.
be based, yeah, in all kinds of things. Or if if they even do have, I'm thinking, I don't want to name certain people out loud, but like if they do have a pretty big following, like there can kind of be some truth to like, okay, this you know, um, I don't know, it can kind of feed into that level of grandiosity, and whether or not that's coming from insecurity or not, I don't know, who's to say.
Right.
But yeah.
Yep. One of the things that they the biggest thing that I think they noted was uh, the results suggest that narcissism is better understood as a compensatory, excuse me, comp-
Compensatory. uh,
I know how to say that normally, uh, adaptation to overcome and cover up low self worth, which I think again is irrelevant. But I think, I mean, it's relevant, but it makes sense, right? But I think it's interesting the way they pulled that out. So anyway, but yeah, I think ultimately it is what it is, right?
mhm.
Anyway, should we jump into the chat?
Sure.
Okay, I have a question from YSMY. And it says, how true is it that a narcissistic friend needs you more than you need them? Why do they end or ghost you or discard the friendship in the first place and occasionally keep ghosting or texting and ghosting? So in this case, I would say probably they do need you more than you need them most of the time, depending on what the chocolate is, right? Like Richard Grant always says, taking the chocolate, meaning if you whatever the benefit for you is of being their friend. Is it just that you have a friend, or do they do something for you? I think it just depends. But ultimately, yeah, they when they need you, they do need you more than you need them. But they why do they end, ghost, or discard the friendship? But then occasionally they text and ghost again, I think has something to do with their lack of, lack of empathy, but lack of value they place on other people. So they see you more as an extension of themselves than they see you as a whole person. And I think that's part of it. Why do they keep texting and ghosting? I think probably they need a little touch of supply, or they have some other reason to reach out to you that's related to something they want and not so much you specifically. And I'm sorry about that. Dana, thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, and while I give my thoughts, we lost your video.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay, let me try it
Yeah.
again.
Let's see.
So weird.
There
There
you
it
are.
goes. Am I there? Okay,
Yes. Okay.
cool. All right.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I would say that they need anybody necessarily. That's one, again, that's another one of those phrases that people can twist around, and um, it can pull on their heartstrings or pity strings
Hmm.
of, oh my gosh, well, this person, um, they need me. They need supply. They
Yeah.
need this. And no, they don't. Like, supply is just, it's a way for a person to get their needs met. We all have needs. We all go about getting them met. It's whether or not how we go about it, it's adaptive or maladaptive. And
Mm,
um, you don't. I just want to make it clear, like, you don't need to be somebody's supply because you think that the narcissist somehow needs you more than them, because nobody needs a toxic friendship or a toxic relationship.
that's right.
So
Yep.
regardless of what they need, figure out what you need,
I
and then
agree
reverse
100%.
engineer that. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and you got a live stream chat.
Oh, sure enough. Do you want to read it?
Sure. This
Go
is
ahead.
from Couch Multiplayer.
Cool name.
Yeah. Who says, thanks, Angie, for the video on the differences between narcissism and Asperger's. I have Asperger's and I am the scapegoat of my toxic family. My dad is an overt, mom is a covert. Everyone, including siblings, hate me and use my Asperger's against me as my emotions are amplified.
I get it. And this is a terrible place to be when you are the scapegoat, and then it's probably hard for you to put your head around why, right? Why they're treating you that way. They don't understand you, and it might be difficult for you to understand their behavior. I'm glad the video was helpful for you. And I'm not sure how old you are, but based on your live stream donation, I would say that that's probably you're probably an adult. Um,
Yeah.
I hope you do you live with them? Let us know. Dana, do you have any thoughts?
Um, well, I guess I just wanted to add to that validation that yeah, that's um, for non neurotypical people. So people with ADD or ADHD, people on the autism spectrum, their brains are wired a little differently. And for non um, neurodiverse people, they don't understand that. And so, and I'm so sorry that you're getting the brunt of abuse and mistreatment, and it's hard enough going through life kind of with these neurological differences, just having a brain that's
Mhm.
wired a little differently.
Yep.
Emotions are wired differently, thinking can be wired differently, interacting with others. It doesn't make it bad or wrong by any stretch, it just means it's a little different.
Yep.
And trying to make life work with a neurodiverse brain is a challenge in and of itself, because you have to kind of figure out, because the rest of society, like the neurotypical society, is out there doing their own thing and it's pretty smooth sailing.
Hmm.
And those that have those challenges of neurodiversity, it can be very overwhelming and very discouraging and feel like just an uphill climb the whole way. So we're glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you were able to get some support and clarity from Angie's video.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's really great, and thank you again for the what's it called, super chat.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh wait, he's couch multiplayer says 38 years old, live on my own, very successful. Unlike them, yet they always tear me down. I've now got no contact from the lot of them, but feel alone. Love your videos. Thank you for that, and also good for you. I think it is important, unfortunately, for you to remain no contact if they're treating you that way. I know it's hard to get yourself clear, and it sounds like you've done that, and that I've done the same thing with my toxic family, so I totally understand, um, and I think good for you. I'm so glad the videos are helpful.
Hmm.
All right, any other thoughts to share on that, Dana, before we move on?
No, I agree
Okay,
completely.
perfect.
Um, Here's a comment from comedian Will Rodriguez, who says,
Yep.
"How about we call it selfishness?" I think in terms of narcissism. And I guess I just wanted to add to that. Yes, I think most people, when they think about narcissism, um, that's what they think of. And in part, like that's a big part of it, right? Like that's kind of the foundation of it. It's with narcissism, it's all about that person
Hmm.
at at the expense or neglect of others.
Yep.
But it's everything else. There's that ripple effect around selfishness. That is where the real problems start.
Hmm.
It's the neglect, it's the abuse, it's the entitlement, it's the justifications of bad behavior. It's, you're just emotionally just drained. I mean, you're just squeezed out and tossed aside. It's so profoundly damaging when it's extreme.
Yeah, and I think it's all really based on, selfishness is certainly a quality that's there, but I
Hmm.
think all of it comes from the fact that, especially now, depending on where they are on the spectrum, they may always lack empathy, or they may only lack empathy when they are, agitated or irritated, depending on, again, where they lay on the spectrum. But that lack of empathy causes them to take extreme actions and say horrible things and do, literally, I think it all comes from there. I think I think that whatever causes them to develop that, which I think is probably, we've talked about many times, attachment styles, long life experiences, etc. That thing that lack of empathy for me seems like the core of all of it. That is where the bad behavior starts, in my opinion. Because if you, for example, if you have, uh, let's use a really simple, non-harmful example.
Mhm.
So when I was married to my ex, I used to like, I don't know, let's say that we had cookies and they were my favorite cookies in the whole wide world. Let's say maybe I saved the last cookie, or no, let me say that because it was never me saving the cookie.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe he saved the last cookie for himself, and I saw it sitting there for 2 weeks. And finally, one day, I was like, "Well, it's gonna go bad if somebody doesn't eat it, so I'm just gonna eat it." Right? And then it was just a little cookie. And then maybe that day he came home and noticed the cookie was gone and screamed and yelled at me for 3 hours because I ate his favorite cookie that was really my favorite cookie, you know, or whatever. People who care about how people feel would never even think to do that. In fact, or if you are sitting down to dinner and your kid walks in, mom, I haven't eaten in 3 days, would you continue your dinner, or would you go and make your kid some dinner? I don't know. Or would you hand him your plate? A narcissist would probably be like, well, too bad for you, I'm eating right now, I'll talk to you later. You know what I mean, depending
Mhm.
on the time. Again, so I'm just saying, the lack of empathy, and lack of concern for other people, for their feelings, their well-being, all of that, to me, is where it all starts. you know
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the most damaging part, and it's the most frustrating part. And it's also probably the part that keeps people kind of intertwined in these relationships, thinking, well, if I can just improve
Mhm.
my communication, or if I can just figure out how to get through to them, then surely they would change. If I can just point out to them, hey, that's, you ate, I don't know, the rest of the food in the fridge, and you knew our child hasn't eaten all day. Like, what's the kid going to eat? Right? Like, what's our
Right.
son going to eat? And
Right.
um, just kind of that complete lack of regard for others is it's so hard, I think, for kind of normal decent people to understand that, to just realize, the world is full of people, full of very different people, and not everybody has the same level of empathy, compassion, understanding, desire to make a relationship work. These kinds of things, everybody's level is different. And I really blame a lot of this in part on, we're it comes from good intentions, but it's kind of, we're taught this in childhood, right? That people are kind of inherently all the same. And it's important that you be friends with everybody, and that we all kind of want the same things, right? In life. And that's not true.
Right. That's unfortunate, but it's
Yeah.
it's really, yeah. There's so many. It's really so many. There are so many toxic messages out there. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yep. And that's the thing. It's like, what can be so confusing to add to that is these toxic messages under certain circumstances are actually really healthy,
yes,
right?
that's right.
But
That's
it
right.
just it's the problem with these messages isn't the message itself, it's that it's missing that fuller context
Yes.
of boundary standards and deal breakers. And that's when people, myself included, you get off track if you're kind
Hmm.
of applying the um, you know, same solution to a variety of problems.
Totally.
So here's a comment from Marianne. This is excellent. She says, yeah, it's not our place to fix anyone or to make excuses for unacceptable behavior. We needed to understand before we understood.
Mm,
Now that we know the truth, we can forgive and live on without blaming ourselves.
absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And I was like, yeah, I definitely needed to understand, I'm like that about everything in my life, though. Like anything that
Hmm.
confuses me or makes my life hard, I need to stop and slow down and go, wait a minute, what's going on here? I need to understand the psychology if there are humans involved. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
I'm a nerd like that. It's fine with me. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
with
No,
you.
I think that's a very, very valid thing. you know
Yeah.
it's it's hard, it's hard for anybody to completely like flip their worldview upside down just based off of somebody saying, oh well, this person's a narcissist, they never change, just trust me on this, just don't
Hmm.
look back.
Right.
Right? Like, I think person has to kind of undo that digging, and then in answering those questions, like, more questions surface,
Hmm.
just to like what Marianne was saying, and that's part of that whole understanding process. And
For sure.
one of the big lessons is that people are different. We don't all have the same morals or motivations. And it's really wild that we could have somebody so destructive in our life and kind of not realize it,
Right.
you know, or not
100%.
realize it for so long.
Hmm. Absolutely. Could not could not agree more. I need to say, hey, Ellen, welcome. And also, I need to say to our admins, Jack Lumen and Helpful Mom, hello, Jack Lumen. I did not figure out how to schedule the stream, so I'm not sure what happened. Um, and to Helpful Mom, yeah, I will hit you up in Discord after. Okay. Um, sorry, I just wanted to throw
Okay.
before I forgot. Do you have another chat for
Yeah.
us?
Yeah, I've
Okay,
got a
go ahead.
couple. Simone makes the comment, love cannot save them. I know, I've tried.
Mm, so true. That's the truth. I think I know for sure I've tried. I know Dana's tried more
Mm-hmm.
than we've tried more than once in different situations. Yeah, it's the thing is I think in some cases you could love someone healthy, but never when they're a narcissist, and even then they have to want to change. You know, I dated one guy when I was my early 20s, I guess. Really early 20s, late teens, really. But, um, and he was one of those people that challenged me, but in a way that was healthy for me, mostly. Because he, instead of like, I don't know, like he would, for example, I was like, oh, I want to get healthier physically, whatever. So he like started walking with me every morning, or I wanted to, stuff like that. He was
Mm-hmm.
more aware. Of course, I dumped him like an idiot, but that was a long time ago, so it's fine. Anyway, and then right after that, I married my ex-husband because I was really smart. Oh, look, we have another super chat. Thank you, Ellen. She says, without both of your videos, ours, and she said, and especially Angie, your responses got me out of a narcissist marriage. Your videos validated exactly what I was living through and continue to help as I grow in my new life. I am so excited and happy to hear that. That's exactly why I do what I do. So thank you. And I know, Dana, that's why you do what you do as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Thank you, Ellen.
absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And I also appreciate you being an awesome member. Thank you. Okay. Um, Now, one of these this is a comment from Ellen. She said, I have extremely low self-esteem, but I went the opposite way." And that's like we were talking about earlier, how some narcissists will, or I mean, narcissists, some children of abusers will go one way or the other, and a lot of us went the other, not the narcissism way. Yeah, with you
Mm-hmm.
on that. Yep. Okay, where were we? I'm sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Yep.
Um, let's see. Well, here's a question from Karen, who says, I've
Okay.
been dating the same person for 4 years. He once said he's a sociopath. Now he's more open with his personality. He never mentioned it again. Should I fear a retaliation now that I know more?
Um, I guess it depends on the situation. I think you always should be prepared for it. It depends on the type of what you've seen so far. I mean, if you've seen him be vindictive, if you've seen him be aggressive to people who have rejected him or pushed him away in any way, then maybe you need to be worried. If he's more of a walk away type, like whatever, then it's hard to know for sure what to say without knowing more about him. With that being said, I don't think every sociopath kills people or hurts people. And I think you would know better than we would know in his case, because we don't know him personally. But in any case, always take precautions and be prepared, because even someone who's never done anything to you physically, I've seen it happen where bad stuff happens when you walk away. So I think it's just always be careful and be prepared. Dana, thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I have quite a few thoughts about this. It sounds like you're still dating this guy.
Hmm.
So I guess I would want to know, you're wanting to know if you should fear retaliation. Are you planning on leaving, or
I
kind of
assume that.
where, yeah, where that's
Yeah.
coming from? Um, Here's the thing. Most people, the word sociopath is really thrown around kind of loosely, but even still, even though it's like the same with psychopath, like it's kind of thrown around, when people use that word, they're usually meaning, I don't care about others. Like that's kind of
Hmm.
what like the layperson means when they say, oh, I'm a sociopath. Like I don't, I don't care about other people, and I just do what I want, kind of a thing. Um, so I guess I would want to know, like, well, why does he think he's a sociopath? Like, what behavior is in him that he thinks is sociopathic? Um, but with that, but even with that said, I think anybody that's telling you, basically, yeah, I'm a sociopath, I just don't care about other people. That's a problem, and it's not just a problem in terms of safety. It's a problem. Well, that's number one. Safety is always number one, but in terms of having a relationship with them. So a person that doesn't care about other people, it's kind of all about them. They're kind of anti-society, anti-laws, whatever. They're going to do what they want. That's not a person that's relationship material. So this is kind of why I was wondering, are you planning on leaving? Um, Kind of what is the situation? And like Angie was saying, in terms of, I think it's always a good idea to be cautious when um, leaving any relationship, even if there's never been any abuse present. It
Mhm.
people in that situation, they have nothing left to lose, and at a minimum, a lot of people become very reactive and they lash out, and their whole goal is, oh well, if you're going to leave me, then I'm going to really do something to hurt you. And they can become very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, and it can escalate into physical abuse. If a
Mhm.
person has a history with you or with anybody else of being physically abusive in any way, shape, or form, proceed with extreme caution, and I wouldn't tell them that you're leaving until after you've left.
Yep.
So yeah, tread lightly, because these situations escalate quickly, and most of the time when they do escalate, it's it's kind of like a bell you can't unring.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I
prepare for
yeah,
that.
I think that's really important information. I wanted to say we just got a um, super chat from comedian Will Rodriguez without a comment. I assume that was in gratitude for our response to his comment, but I just searched and I didn't see another one. Do you see another one? Wait a minute, maybe I do. Hold on. Um,
Oh yeah, he says, now that I left my narcissist, I have money to donate. Thanks for the great information and advice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you. Thank you. That is beautiful news, sir.
Yes, yes it is.
Yes. Yes, yes. Okay, good, good. Where was I? Okay. I had something pulled up and now I just Okay. Do you have another wait a minute. I do. Joey.
Okay, go for it.
Joey says my roommate in a roommate in a large house is an older woman. She texted me to ask who the new tenant was and then proceeded to start texting about her being quiet as a church mouse because she has nowhere else to go. Just out of place, really. Yeah, that is kind of I thought I saw another thing from Joey earlier, but he said, or I assume he said that um, what does it mean when someone starts to call you "Hey you," and when you've been nothing but respectful instead of your name, I guess. And I think in that case, it could just be a matter of they're showing you they're used to you now, and so they don't respect you anymore. It could be something deeper than that. It depends on who they are. As for the roommate situation, that does sound a little weird. That's what you would. I assume you mean the roommate. The new roommate is has nowhere else to go.
Mhm.
It is a little out of place. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Dana?
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, if somebody's addressing you in a way that you're not comfortable with, it's
Hmm.
worth bringing up to them.
Yeah.
So a simple, hey, you know what? You used to call me my name, but now you're calling me hey you.
Mm.
Like, I just wanted to know why.
Yep.
Or if you don't like that, if it feels overly casual, or if it feels whatever, if you're like, you can just say, hey, my name is, or I forget what your name is. My name is John, or whatever it is. Um,
Joey.
Joey, thank you. My name is Joey. Like, I don't know who you're talking to when you say, hey, you. Uh,
I like
I'm
that.
Joey.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be kind of this huge confrontation, but kind of just letting them know, uh, yeah, Joey. My name's Joey.
Love it.
Something like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yep. Smart, smart. I have one from Bonnie, unless you have one.
Go, no, go for it.
Okay. Bonnie says, "Can you touch upon the subject of splitting versus black and white thinking?" You want to start us off?
Well, there's a lot of similarities. Splitting black and white thinking is something that people in general, I think, kind of engage in. We've all done it. It's um, kind of something is or it isn't,
Right.
right? It's like there's no gray area in between. It's just black or white.
Mhm.
And black or white thinking can happen in a wide variety of situations. Um, I either need to stay at this job and be miserable, or I need to quit.
Mm.
Like that's black or white thinking, kind of very extreme. Splitting tends to be that same kind of black or white thinking, but after basically when a person's triggered. So
Mm.
like when they're feeling activated, maybe there's fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of that, they go very, it's like they spiral into like, I love you, but I hate you. I want to be with you, but I need, this relationship's not going to work. And they're going back and forth.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. And I mean, I think that either way, I think it's important to, well, let me say this. When we're talking about black and white thinking, I think this is kind of weird and you probably, you might not even believe me, but very rarely do I actually engage in that now today. I'm almost always like, but what if that, or what
Hmm.
about this idea or whatever. But there are certain things, but as far as splitting goes, yeah, I think that's like you said, you pretty much said it all. So Bonnie, let us know if you have other questions on that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it depends, like if you're experiencing this kind of behavior, because the splitting, I think kind of, most people associate with splitting with like borderline personality disorder.
Mhm.
um, but any, I really think any traumatized person can engage in it. It's when we're feeling activated and we just kind of start to panic, and it's just kind of this panic mode of I want this, but I feel that,
Mhm.
and that back and forth. So in terms of experiencing this from, yeah, well, like
Sounds like
Angie said,
cognitive dissonance almost.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, like you were saying, Angie, when now these days you're kind of looking out for that third option,
Mhm.
coming from a place of curiosity,
Yep.
and that's um, and kind of like Marianne was saying earlier, we have to first understand these things, these
Yep.
concepts, and this is one of them. Black and white thinking is very easy to engage in. I would say that's kind of the default for most people. It's not until we know different then we can start doing different and
Yep.
realizing, okay, if our choices are two, then that's not, two things is not a choice, that's a dilemma.
Right.
So there's always a third option.
Mhm.
And taking the time to kind of seek that out, just realizing that, oh, okay, two is a dilemma, three, now I actually start having choice.
Mhm.
um, Seeking out that choice and getting curious and exploring options, that's kind of when, I don't know, the magic starts to happen and your life begins to start working because you're not feeling so stuck.
And exactly. Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
I have a comment from Anja who says narcissists prefer to be an actor of their own life so they don't have to feel their insecurity. And I think that's pretty
Hmm.
valid, that false self we talk about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would agree with that. Here's a question from Nivik,
Hmm.
who says, "Do you have any videos about the narcissistic abuse cycle with narcissistic parents? I'm
Yep.
trying to identify what is love bombing with my narcissistic mother."
Ooh, I got it. Okay. Yes, I do have those videos, but here's what love bombing looks like with a narcissistic mother. So it might look like all of a sudden you're getting some validation that you haven't ever gotten or haven't gotten any time recently. It might be happening because, let's say, you expressed something she didn't expect, like she did her usual, abuse, or maybe it was an invalidation, or it was tearing you down, or whatever it was. She did something, she said something to you didn't like, or did something you didn't like, and one day you finally stood up and said, "This is it. I'm done with you. I can't do this anymore." And that's about the time that she might come back around. It kind of looks like hoovering a little bit, but love bombing is basically she will act like a normal mom for a minute, maybe, or she will, depending on who she is and what her thing is. I've seen it done in the form of, well, here's son, here's some illegal drugs you can try. I mean, or I've seen it done in like, let me bake cookies for you, or let me clean your room, or buy you something, or say a nice thing to you. But it's about
Mhm.
whatever she deems something that you desperately need from her. that's what she might give you during love bombing. But then of course the minute that you go, okay, I won't stop talking to you, mom, or okay, we're cool now, or whatever, she'll quickly revert back to her old behaviors, just like any narcissist. Thoughts, Dana?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it helps to think of love bombing in terms of it's emotionally immature behavior,
Hmm.
and it's designed to kind of get something.
Yep.
So it's, um, yeah, kind of more of like that honeymoon stage of a relationship. It's schmoozy. It's kind of
Yeah.
telling another person everything that they want to hear in order to kind of get them to come back. Sometimes it's intentional, um, where it's, you've got like really like malicious and intentional people out there that will send others on this roller coaster ride. But I think a lot of the time, for the probably vast majority of really problematic people out there, it's not intentional. It feels really sincere, because we all feel that way when there's that threat of loss of any kind, right? Kind of
Hmm.
that human response is, oh, I don't want to lose this, I'll kind of be on my best behavior.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then things start to settle down again, and they get comfortable, and then they're back to their old ways. And with narcissists or other types of problematic people, you have to realize too that this is the way that they navigate life. Like, this is their default behavior. So it's not like there's some sort of happy, healthy, well-adjusted person underneath this.
Right.
There isn't. This what you're seeing is this is how this person has learned to get by in life, and
Hmm.
they don't have other other skills. They'd have to unlearn everything that they're doing and then build up healthier ways of interacting with others. Um,
Yep. Yep. No doubt.
and I think kind of realizing that can help. Like, really realizing that it's like if you had a person who had an anxiety disorder, right? And um, you needed them to be calm, like cool, calm, and collected. Like, I really need them to be there for me, and they're not able to be that way. Like,
Right.
you know, um, they're just very easily activated. They struggle with anxiety. It's not reasonable on our end to expect them to somehow show up in life differently, at least at this point in life, right? Like, this is, or maybe a better example is, it's not fair or reasonable to expect an introvert to be an extrovert or an
Hmm.
extrovert to be an introvert. Like, that's just kind of how they are at this point.
That's right. Yep. I totally agree with you. We have another super chat from Couch and Multiplayer. Thank you. Who says, please do a video on how narcissists try to destroy and minimize your hobbies, even if those hobbies pay the bills and get you on the road to success. I will. But before that, I'll tell you this um, quickly. What in my personal, this has happened to me. They not only killed my hobbies and they tried to kill other things for me, but they also basically took every bit of passion that I had and stomped on it and spit on it and buried it in the ground. But I got over it. I found it. I dug it back up. I was going with that metaphor. Anyway, my point is that the reason, in my opinion, that they do this is because they don't want you to do anything that isn't about them. And these hobbies, these ideas, these things that you're doing, even when they do help pay the bills, they take time and attention from the narcissist. And in fact, if you look at a narcissist and you know that every time every time I've tried to do XYZ hobby or you know um, whatever it is, this person attacks me, then one day they go, you know what, you should go do that hobby again. There's probably a reason, just so you know, and it's probably cheating. Dana, thoughts
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think it all goes back to them.
Hmm.
So if you can think about things that you think are a waste of time,
Hmm.
right? Or that you don't like. Like, if I don't know, I'm just thinking, for me, not a fan of soccer. Okay. Nothing against soccer. It's just, I wouldn't, it doesn't spark joy in me. Um, so just because I don't want to take up soccer or value soccer, I'm able to realize that other people really enjoy soccer. But
Hmm.
for a narcissist, it's just so all about them all the time that they cannot see past that. So I think they mistakenly think that their thoughts and feelings are the only way. So if it's sort of like, well, if I think soccer, um, I don't know, isn't that engaging of a sport? Well, then you should too.
Hmm.
And if you don't think that way, then there's something wrong with you.
Yep.
And so it's that way with hobbies. But then there's also that added challenge with narcissists where it's like, I think that this does come from low self esteem, whether they might realize it or not. But it's that fear of, I don't want you to be better than at something than I am,
Yes, that's a valid point.
no
Absolutely.
matter what it is. No matter, even if you're like, again, like I'm not big into soccer. So if somebody else was like, oh, okay, um, they're going to go be a soccer player, you know, like some level of jealousy or envy is just kind of normal. It's part of the human experience, but it becomes a problem if it's sort of like, I can't have you succeed in any way, shape, or form that's going to be threatening to me. Even if I have no desire to be a soccer player, you do, and you start getting good at it, it can trigger up all kinds of these, kick up all kinds of feelings of inadequacy and what does this mean about me, and oh my gosh. And um, I think that's kind of the result of it. It's just, I've got to keep everybody, if my ego is gonna um, be up here and I'm gonna feel good about myself, I need to knock everybody else down,
Oh yeah, that's
kind of a
exactly
thing.
what you're so spot on. That's so true. Yeah, and that's an important addition too. Really quickly, Nivik says thank you, and with a super chat, thank you, Nivik. We appreciate you for the, I guess, for the question that we answered earlier.
Mhm.
Very good, thank you. I have a couple of comments I'd like to pull out, if that's all right.
Go for
Um,
it.
so Hufflemom said that she thinks that calling a narcissist selfish is an oversimplification, which I agree. And then we have some other points here that I thought were really important to bring out. So TK says, selfishness is sugarcoating it for my experience. Mine was a malicious, pathological, abusive monster. Same. Well, one of mine was my first one. Um, then Couch says, never understood their family's jealousy when you have always done your best to help and support them throughout the years. I'm done. I feel you. And then two more comments, then I'll stop.
Go for it.
Okay. Um, all right. So we have one from Simone who says they're not selfish, they're abusive. Agree. And then we have one from Kimberly that's, and this is where I think it all comes. This is what my point was too. So Kimberly, we're on the same page here. She says there's a spectrum from lack of empathy to outright malice, not caring versus actively trying to hurt someone. And I think that's it. And Simone added that they're manipulative and controlling, but that's, and Will Rodriguez says abuse is selfish, and I totally, all of
Hmm.
those are valid points that you made there. I think Kimberly's point, the spectrum, lack of empathy to outright malice, agree. I think that's what it is, because there is that. The lack of empathy could be as small as, I'm going to go pour myself a cup of coffee and I'm going to forget to pour you a cup of coffee, even though I know you really want a cup of coffee, right? But
Hmm.
it could be, I'm going to put poison in your coffee too. If I'm going to go ahead and bring it, but I mean that's an extreme version. But
Hmm.
you know that, I don't know why I'm talking about coffee. I think I'm having a craving, but that's my point. Yeah. Anyway, do you have any comments on all of that?
um, yeah, no, those are all spot on. You know, uh, for a long time, with abuse, domestic violence in particular, people have talked about it's been misunderstood as an anger issue. And I forget when kind of that shift was made. I probably in the 70s or 80s, where it was identified as, no, it's not an anger issue, it's a power and control issue. And that's the difference. So it's um, kind of with that selfishness, sort of like, okay, it should be a certain way. um, we all again, like, we all have opinions about things, we all have opinions about how things should be, but it's most people have that ability to work with other people and to compromise and to negotiate and to feel frustration and anger and to be able to moderate that.
Yep.
So it's not just being dumped out onto other people. Whereas with narcissists, more often than not, that's where they feel so entitled and justified. It's
Hmm.
they're confusing their feelings for facts. Sort of like, okay, well, you frustrated me, or you did something that made me angry, and therefore it's somehow, in their mind, it's somehow reasonable or appropriate to lash out. and it's not. So
Yep.
again, most people have this understanding of you can feel frustrated or angry, but you can't, you can't have road rage and go ram somebody's car, or um,
Right.
start beating your children or your spouse, or um, whatever. Like, there has to be boundaries there for behavior.
I totally agree. 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
Go
I
ahead.
have a, I have a comment.
Mhm.
Okay, this is from Lulu, who says, yes, they can learn to mimic emotions, but they'll never be able to they'll never be able to experience them.
I have thoughts about that. Can I really quick?
Go for it.
Okay, so I think that's true of a psychopath and possibly a sociopath. But I think when we're talking about your standard run of the mill malignant narcissist type, we're talking about someone who definitely has emotions, but they're only concerned about their emotions. So everyone else's emotions aren't important, only theirs. And that's what I've seen in many of them. They get really angry and really sad and really everything, but these things happen as a result of them not getting supply, but when you get further up the scale, we're talking about a sociopath, a psychopath, and yeah, no emotions many
Mhm.
times. Thoughts?
Yeah, or strange emotions.
Yes.
That's what I've
Unnatural.
experienced. Like
Yeah.
the two men that I was involved with, and then one guy that I only went on a few dates with, all
Hmm.
three of them I saw cry. And each time, and of course I've seen people cry before,
Sure.
so it's like that in itself is not strange. It
Right.
was um the one guy I went on a few dates with, it was completely like crocodile tears, like a little kid. It was the weirdest thing. It was him pretending to cry. And I remember sitting there thinking, does he think I'm gonna buy this? Like, it was just so strange. And
Hmm.
it was so half such a half-baked attempt at manipulation. It was so strange. And then
Yep.
the other time, um, with a guy that I dated, was crying, like sobbing,
Mm,
absolutely beside himself. He'd gotten some bad news about a person he hardly knew, and a person he didn't like
mm,
even.
mm.
And he had to take the day off work. And again, I remember thinking, wow, this is really kind of over the top. I think if I were to have gotten news about this, that I kind of felt like his response was just way over the top, and then it kind of made me question myself, like, am I lacking in empathy?
Mm.
Because I wouldn't have a response anywhere near that. And so
Right.
that really kind of messed with my head for a while. But fast forward, I realized, no, he was putting on a show of what he thought, of how he thought somebody should act upon receiving this news.
Yep.
Weird.
Yep. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And that is interesting too. And I have seen, I see what you're saying there. So that in my opinion, like maybe that lack of empathy causes them to overact sometimes or to do what, as you explain. Yeah, that makes sense. That's valid. Okay. So that kind of validates the question in the first place. Because yeah, that is okay, I'm gonna stop. You're right. Spot on. Spot on. All right, let's see here. Oh, Couch Multiplayer says Dana's right. I have been that way for years, even blaming myself trying to change due to my Asperger's, but now I realize it isn't me for the previous and adds they all don't like truth tellers, and that is the truth, my friend. Any thoughts on that, Dana?
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other do you have another question for us? I'm looking here. Oh, I have one if you don't.
Go for it.
Okay, from Celeste. Why does it feel so exceptionally violating, hurtful, disgusting, abusive, and saddening while still feeling the confused, obsessive, critical of self and depletion, or at least questioning of self worth? That is a really powerful description, and I think a valid description of narcissistic abuse. And I think, so obviously what you're saying is, I think is, okay, so we know it's wrong, it's disgusting, it's violating, hurtful, abusive. But then on the other side, we're still like, but wait a minute, maybe I still have feelings for that person. Why am I so obsessed with them? Why do I still care what they think or feel? And what is wrong with me? Right. So to me, that speaks of trauma bonding with that person, where you may almost be addicted to them. Um, and it's probably more normal than you think. I can relate very much to what you're saying here on, and I think a lot of us can, at different stages in recovery. Now there will be a point that will come where you will stop questioning yourself so much, but it requires intentional healing and time. Um, but you can do it. I'm interested, Dana, in what your thoughts are. I know we're running a little low on time because you have an
Sure.
appointment today. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
What was the question again?
Why does it feel so violating, hurtful, disgusting, abusive, and saddening while still feeling confused, obsessive, critical of yourself, and
Mm,
depleted, or at least questioning of your self worth? Narcissistic abuse, and I guess ending that relationship.
yeah. Well, you know, uh, there's a saying out there that it takes a little while for the heart to catch up with the head.
Mm,
And there's a lot of truth in that. So like we can logically know that this situation was bad, it was toxic, it it needed to end, but there's still feelings there. And those feelings take time to process and to work through. And the ending of a relationship, no matter how horrible it was, um, and most relationships aren't horrible 100% of the time. There probably were some good times there. But
mm,
even if a relationship was 100% horrible, if you had feelings, then you had an emotional investment in that. And the ending of a relationship is still a loss. And it's normal and healthy and appropriate to grieve that loss.
mhm.
Um, I think this is one of the challenges so many survivors of abusive relationships have is it's this feeling of, well, I should be glad it's over, right? Or
Yep.
other people are telling them that, well, like at least you made it out, or it could have been worse, or um, you know, you could do so much better. Uh, while all of these things might be true, the reality is you were still in a relationship with this person, and it hurts. It hurts when relationships end, and kind of, and here's the thing too, with the ending of a relationship, it's not just the loss of a relationship. There's oftentimes the loss of an identity, of the role that we
Yep.
were in. If you were a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there's the loss of that role. There's the loss of some mutual friends. There's the loss of housing if you're having to move out. There's the loss of the future that you had hoped could be.
Hmm.
There's lots of losses tangled up in that. Um, and yeah, that's why that it feels so profound, because it is.
Hmm. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Okay. I thought I just had one and I lost it. Do you have another one for us?
No, I was in the exact same thing. I
Oh, I
thought I
do
was
have one. I do have
okay.
one.
Go for
Okay.
it.
All right. Leah says, okay, for two things. First, a comment from Michelle who says, we just assume everyone thinks like we do, which I think you might have already read this one, or at least you said this earlier. We assume that everyone thinks like we do, lives in the reality we do, where we wouldn't hurt someone intentionally. And I think that's 100% true.
Hmm.
And as we discussed earlier, Liz says, I was with a narcissist for 8 years and he went back to his ex. The same one that made my life so horrible in the beginning of the relationship. Yes, the same one he said he hated. Now I'm just in shock. My friend, first of all, I'm so sorry. Secondly, even though I know that that must be incredibly painful for you, maybe this person's doing you a favor in the long run, just something to consider. And the only reason I say that is because even though you were tortured by this person in the beginning, because obviously they must be toxic as well on some level, or at least enmeshed thoroughly, going back to someone after 8 years speaks to me, in the way of it's a matter of this person probably will be in his little stable or harem of supply for a long time, if
Hmm.
not forever. And so being in a situation where you've been with this person for 8 years and now the same, yeah, my point is, I think it was about supply. I don't think it was about you or the other person, and I'm sure the other person did some underhanded stuff, and I hope that you will not stay in that circle of supply, or that harem, or whatever you want to call it, and that you will, end your affiliation with it at this point. I hope there are no kids for you involved. But Dana, thoughts?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking when that happens. And I guess I just would encourage you, um, him leaving you for somebody else or whatever. It's kind of, I just wanted to underscore the importance of the difference between having hurt feelings and self-worth. And in moments like these, it's very, if we're not careful, it's it's easy to take on that hurt and to make it mean something that it doesn't need to mean, that it's somehow something about you and that you're not good enough, or that this person somehow has things better than you, or you don't need to make it into a reflection of who you are. So you don't need to have it negatively impact your self-worth. But it's understandable that you'd have hurt feelings. So keeping those hurtful events in two different buckets. So keep your self-worth intact and keep the hurt feelings and hurt feelings.
I could not agree more. Yep.
Yeah. Here's a question from Nance who says, I'm curious, I'm going back into the workplace. How do I not conform to fit into the world of narcissism in the workplace when they realize I'm a kind hearted empath?
Well, boundaries, my friend. Set them,
Yeah.
maintain them. Don't let them even one step over the edge. That's where I would start. And I think it starts with, deciding ahead of time what is tolerable to you and what is not. And ultimately, um, how does something make you feel? So if you are, you know, required to do something as part of your job, then you have to do it. But if, let's say, I don't even know what kind of job you're doing. Let's say you're working in a flip flop factory. I'm just going to use that as a funny
Mhm.
example. But let's say that the guy next to you gets behind on his flip flop making or whatever, and he needs you to make like an extra 25 flip flops on the DL.
Mhm.
Don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like do what's your job, do what you're okay with and comfortable with doing, but don't go outside of that for somebody, especially if they're manipulative. And also, be careful not to get, I think it's really important to not get too close to anyone you work with in the same office or the same building, at first, at least until you get to know them better, because then you avoid getting stuck with a toxic friend at work, and somebody who might end up pulling you down. I think the best thing is to be nice, polite to everyone, respectful to everyone, and just see where it goes from there. But don't, put time limits on, like, I'm not going to hang out with anybody that I met at work for 90 days or something like that. If you need to, meaning outside of work, do whatever you want while you're, but those boundaries is what it's about for me. I think Dana just walked away. So I will just keep talking about that. Yeah, I would start with the boundaries. Sorry about the loudness over here. Um, all right, let's see here. So Simone says, um, I have friends that message me out of the blue and say, "How are you?" I reply, "I'm fine. How are you?" They just disappear. So they're not interested. So I leave it. And I think that right there is a really positive, healthy way to manage that. Dana, welcome back. Oh, wait, you're not back. There you are. There you are.
I'm here,
Okay.
here.
All right. Are you about to, do we need to, I know you're leaving in like 4 minutes, aren't you?
Um,
Something like that.
yeah, I've got to wrap up. I can kind of throw my 2 cents in
Yeah, please.
if you're still on the empath question. I guess I just wanted to underscore the importance of what you're saying, those terms of boundaries,
Mhm.
um, and realizing you can be kind and have
Mhm.
boundaries.
Yep.
So they don't. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And um, if you're, I think another way that can be helpful to kind of think about kindness even is if we're hurting ourselves in order to make other people okay, to kind of keep quote unquote keep the peace, right? Then it's not really an act of kindness because we're hurting, we're somebody's still getting hurt and it's us. So um yeah, realizing that, kind of practicing being assertive, practicing speaking up, and your boundaries are what's going to keep you safe. You don't need to fit in. You can be a strong, assertive, um, team oriented, helpful person with boundaries, frankly. And I would say that's the only, that's like the only way to be. It's the
Hmm.
only strategy for success long term in life or at work or whatever, anything else. And if you're too passive, then people are going to take advantage of that, either intentional or even unintentionally. um, they're not going to know if we're not saying anything,
Hmm.
right? So being passive doesn't work. Being passive aggressive is just annoying, and then being aggressive is destructive, you know. So
100%.
yeah, it's you're worth, living a good life, and um, your thoughts and opinions matter. And being assertive, it does, frankly, it does. It takes time and it takes practice. And it takes getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's very common to have that kind of knee jerk reaction. We assert ourselves and then we find ourselves apologizing, or wanting to apologize, or wanting to jump into people pleaser mode. And uh, that's one of the challenges of learning how to be assertive. But it can be done, and I would encourage you to practice that skill as much as you can, even if it means practicing it alone, kind of rehearsing certain conversations that you need to have with people, instead
Yeah,
of like relying on the words to magically enter your head at the right time. So
totally agree. Yep.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, Dana, I know you've got to get out of here. Dana has
Yeah.
a some appointment to go to, so we're going to get ready to wrap up. And in the meantime, everyone, thank you for being here today. Thank you to our amazing mod squad. I think I saw Bonnie today, Mom, and Jack Lumen. Thank you. We appreciate you all. Thank you for those of you who left a live, what's it called? Super chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're not used to getting a lot of those around here.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Um, and and thanks to everyone for being here. Dana, thank you for being here. For those of you who are just joining us, or who are new around here, just remind you, we do this stream once a week around 12:30 Central Time on Tuesdays, 1:30 Dana's time, which I can't remember what that is, Eastern.
Hmm.
Okay. So we alternate channels. This week we're over here on my channel. Next week we'll be back over on Dana's channel, Thrive After Abuse. You can find Dana all around the internet at Thrive After Abuse, thriveafterabuse.com, etc. Um, what else? Oh, and make sure you subscribe. Oops, sorry, someone's walking through. Make sure you're subscribed to both channels, and hit the bell notification to be notified by YouTube. You can also text Angie Live, all one word, to 33222, or Dana Live, all one word, to 22999. And or, because when you text Dana and or myself, we will text you when we go live together, as well as separately. So anything to add, Dana?
um, I guess that's it. Just yeah, take care, be good to yourself, and yeah,
Remember that you're
just
important.
yeah, and worthy of setting boundaries to
That's
ensure
right.
that, yeah, that you maintain that.
100%. All right. Thanks, Dana. See you next week.
Okay.
And
Okay.
thanks,
Take care.
everyone. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.